Today, we're diving into the incredible, decades-long story of how Thailand completely transformed its abortion law. It went from being one of the strictest in Southeast Asia to a progressive, rights-based model. And trust me, it's a journey with some major lessons for the rest of the world. It all kicks off with one pretty staggering number. 150 million baht. That's about $4 million US. Now that number, that's what it was costing Thailand's public health system every single year, just to treat complications from unsafe, illegal abortions. So you see, this was never just a legal debate. It was a massive, expensive, and frankly, a deadly public health crisis.
To really understand just how dramatically things have changed, we first have to go back. We need to look at the law that was in place for over 60 years, a law that had truly deadly consequences.
Okay, so starting in 1957, the Penal Code made almost all abortions a crime, and women could face up to 3 years in prison. Now, yeah, there were exceptions on paper for things like rape or to save a woman's life, but in reality, they were almost impossible to actually access. It wasn't until 2005, when the evidence of the health crisis was just overwhelming, that Thailand's medical council took this one cautious step forward. They expanded the definition of health to include mental health, which opened the door just a tiny bit. But for most people, it was still a climate of fear and desperation.
And this slide really just illustrates the horrific cost of that desperation. Without safe, legal options, women were forced to resort to these incredibly dangerous methods. And we're not talking about rare cases. These were widespread practices that led to life-threatening complications like sepsis and hemorrhage. In fact, unsafe abortions were the cause of up to 15% of all maternal deaths in the country.
And here's the crucial part. Making abortion a crime didn't stop it from happening. It just made it unsafe for the poor. As this quote explains so well, it created this two-tiered system. If you were wealthy, you could find a doctor to perform a safe procedure, discreetly, but if you were poor, rural, or marginalized, you were left with the most dangerous options and faced the most severe consequences.
So this tragic reality, it really set the stage for the next phase of this story, the decades-long battle for reform, which was met with some really powerful and organized resistance.
For years, Thailand was basically a nation divided on this. On one side, you had public health experts and women's rights advocates presenting hard data on the deaths, the injuries, the costs. But on the other side, you had this powerful conservative opposition. It was led by figures like Major General Chamlong Thrimawang and ascetic Buddhist movements like Santi Asok, and they framed abortion not as a health issue, but as a violation of Buddhist values and a kind of Western moral decay. And believe me, this opposition was so effective that it blocked multiple attempts at reform in parliament for decades.
After all those years of political stalemate, the breakthrough finally came, but from a really unexpected place. It didn't come from parliament. It came from the judiciary. This was the moment that changed absolutely everything.
So, what was it? What finally broke this decades-long deadlock? Well, it wasn't a protest. It wasn't a new political party. The catalyst was a brilliant legal challenge that was built on the foundation of fundamental human rights.
The legal strategy here was just a masterstroke. Advocates completely reframed the debate. They argued that the old 1957 law wasn't just regulating a medical procedure, it was violating core principles in Thailand's own 2017 constitution. They said it breached the right to equality by putting a criminal burden only on women, and it breached the right to liberty by denying them bodily autonomy. They basically shifted the entire focus from morality to constitutionality.
And in this landmark decision in February 2020, the Constitutional Court agreed. They ruled that criminalizing women for seeking an abortion was unconstitutional. That single verdict just shattered the political stalemate and legally forced Parliament to rewrite the law.
So how did this monumental court ruling actually translate into concrete changes in the law? Well, it kicked off a completely new era for reproductive rights in Thailand. This table just shows the transformation so clearly. I mean, look at the difference. Under the old law, an abortion in the first 12 weeks was a criminal offense. Under the new law, it is legal on request. From 12 to 20 weeks, it's now legal as long as there's counseling. And the legal grounds themselves, they were expanded from this really narrow definition of physical health to include mental health and fetal anomalies. This is a complete paradigm shift.
So why does this story from Thailand matter so much right now? Well, because it didn't happen in a vacuum. It all went down as the global conversation around abortion rights was becoming more polarized than ever, and it offers this really powerful counter-narrative. The legal foundation is what makes Thailand's case so compelling. In the US, the right to abortion that was established by Roe v. Wade was based on an implied right to privacy, But in Thailand, the right is grounded in explicit constitutional guarantees of equality and liberty. Having that textual foundation and then having the legislature back it up creates a much more robust and resilient legal protection.
Now let's be clear. The US Supreme Court's Dobbs decision has no legal authority in Thailand, but its impact was powerfully symbolic. For Thai advocates, it was a stark cautionary tale. It proved that rights based only on a court's interpretation, well, they can be reversed. It just reinforced how vital their two-pronged strategy was: secure the right in the courts and then lock it into law through Parliament.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most critical question. The laws on the books have been completely transformed, but what about the reality on the ground? Legal reform is the first, absolutely essential step, but the journey isn't over. The challenges now are making sure that every woman, no matter where she lives or how much money she has real access to care. And it's about fighting the deep-seated stigma that can still stop a legal right from becoming a practical reality.